This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Games Workshop came out with a bunch of new Imperial Guard models. Are they finally coming around to showing the Imperial Guard the love they deserve? Well, no, but not for lack of trying. The Imperial Guard is perhaps the most important part of Warhammer 40k. Although there are other flashier show-off factions that defend humanity, like the Jim Bro Space Marines, the Sisterhood of the Traveling Meltaguns, known as the Adeptus Sororitas, or the Emperor's BFFs, the Custodes. They all do their part to defend the human race from the threats of the Heretic, the Mutant, and the Xenos. In the reality of the 41st millennia, however, those factions are few and far between. Day to day, across hundreds of thousands of battlefields, the real protectors of humanity are humanity themselves, the Astra Militarum. The Astra Militarum, or the Guard, are the regular old soldiers of Warhammer 40k, not particularly different from modern Earth militaries other than some of their weapons glow in the dark. The Guard is a unique faction in 40k in that they're not unique. Space soldiers, what you see is what you get, and I think that has led to them being a somewhat forgettable faction. There is a trend to say that Games Workshop hates the Guard, and on the surface, that definitely seems to be the case. They've never been part of a starter box, are often overlooked for the Christmas battle forces, and there hasn't really been any substantial Imperial Guard model released for years. The last new kit was the Hydra anti-air tank from 2012, and that was more Games Workshop trying to shove flyers into the game than Games Workshop throwing the Imperial Guard a bone. The Impy Guard guards haven't been pulling in the dollars to make Games Workshop sit up and take notice, and that's frustrating. They do have their loyal fans, and I would say that out of all of Warhammer, the Guard have the best memes. I see all the Warhammer memes, and it's always the Guard ones that are the perfect combination of pessimism and irony that get a laugh out of me. Even if Games Workshop doesn't seem to care, there is something to the Guard, some little nugget worth mining. There is something fun in the relatability of the Guard. I get an itch every time I watch Starship Troopers, Aliens, or Saving Private Ryan for some good old-fashioned foot sloggers. And perhaps the tides are changing. Games Workshop just dropped 7 new Astra Militarum kits, 6 refreshes of older models that needed some attention, and 1 brand new unit. That new unit being the wheeled artillery pieces. They're a nice in-between the man-portable heavy weapons teams and the Leman Russ battle tank. Probably the most desperately needed refresh, and the most surprising, were the new Katachan shock troopers. These new models are leagues ahead of the old plastic kit, with new details that just didn't exist on the old hand-sculpted models, which came out in 2006. 16 years, those models were getting old. The new Imperial Guard Sentinel Walker is looking really sharp, a more pristine, polished version of the old plastic Sentinel, with some of the smaller details like the mechanisms of the legs and the connection points between the weapons more fleshed out. Although the old plastic Sentinel was also an excellent kit, and has been serving the Imperial Guard well since 2008. I own 3, and they are phenomenal kits, but that was not the first Sentinel. Before that kit, there was this beautiful Chicken Walker. What it lacks in everything, and more than makes up for in cuteness. With legs that look like a pair of backhoes and headlamps that look like big old watery eyes. There is a charm to this old Rogue Trader model, a product of its time. And even this is not the original Sentinel. Feast your eyes on the egg. Yes, really, this was the very first Sentinel model Games Workshop ever created. And you know what? I actually don't mind it. It's got a sort of whimsy to it while also still looking dangerous. Obviously, a completely different design aesthetic to anything else in the Guard, or Warhammer 40k in general, but I can dig it. Models from the first few years of Warhammer were just built different. In fact, early Rogue Trader is probably a good place to start when going through a history of the Imperial Guard. 35 years ago, there wasn't really a defined Astra Militarum army. All of the Imperial's militaries were combined into one Imperial army. The Katachan shock troops had not been invented yet, and the Leman Russ wasn't even a guy, let alone a tank at this point. This was the Imperial Guard soldier. Yes, close to 30 hand-sculpted pewter minis. They look a bit more like futuristic football players than foot-slogging soldiers, but there is a little something to them. The lads guns look about the same as they do today, and each sculpt was named. And the names Vasquez and Hicks should look pretty familiar to Aliens fans. A little bit Star Trek, a little bit Starship Troopers, a little bit glam rock. These guys don't really jump out to me as a force I can really sink my teeth into, but during this period, the lore really solidified into what the Imperial Guard would become. And you know what tool can solidify your online presence in one easy package with dozens of customizable features and easy to navigate tools? That's right, our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website building resource, and it's easy to use. One thing you might not know about me is I am a gold medal-winning juggler, and using Squarespace tools, I can easily create for myself a website that shows off my skills. I can link to videos of myself keeping lots of balls in the air, and host comments so that people can let me know exactly how amazed they are at my skills in the art of toss and catch. And I can even make my site open to multiple contributors so my manager can access and edit the webpage, allowing me to keep doing what I do, juggling. Head on over to Squarespace for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use our code EonsBattle to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. These metal duders didn't stick around long and were replaced by the kit RTB-07, the first plastic Imperial Guard. The box had dramatic art with countless soldiers advancing over a hill in the proud colors of the Necromundan 6th, the Spiders. These models moved away from the classic sci-fi look and more into the hybrid sci-fi historic look that the Imperial Guard have today. The Imperial Guard went from a more unified organization of classic, if bland, Space Marines, but not those Space Marines, to an organization of many different cultures of warriors. Unlike the Space Marines, whose cultures come from science fiction and speculative biology, the Imperial Guard focus more on historic and early cultures. This moved them from every other generic space soldier and into something unique. From 1994, Citadel began releasing troopers with different themes within the overall Guard classification, promising in the 3rd edition codex that there would be many more coming. This diversification helped the Imperial Guard to flourish. It gave them something unique, billions of human soldiers coming from different worlds, all with their own unique eccentricities and cultures. This is what made the Imperial Guard cool, but also in my opinion was the beginning of the Astra Militarum's downfall. So what were these new unique Imperial Guard regiments? Well, the Valhallan Ice Warriors, the cold weather specialists, hailing from a planet that is one big ice cube. The army is all about not retreating. Ice runs through their veins as the cold doesn't bother them anyways. The Talar Desert Raiders. These warm weather warriors are fierce and fight in massive tank battalions. They like big tanks and they cannot lie. The Vostroyan Firstborn, named for the culture of sending off every firstborn child into the ranks of the Imperial Guard. These warriors are the premier manufacturers of weapons and high-quality mustache oil in the galaxy. The Cadian Shock Troopers. Yes, at one time, Cadia was just one of many Imperial Guard regiments, not the Imperial Guard regiment. These are the Ultramarines of the Imperial Guard, clad in green fatigues. To the untrained eye, you have to get pretty close before you notice these are not just modern military soldiers. The Katachan Jungle Fighters, somehow still sold by Games Workshop. Clearly Nottingham is filled with Rambo enthusiasts. These are the jungle fighters straight out of Space Nam. The Armageddon Steel Legion. These drab, khaki gas mask wearing soldiers are often confused with the Death Corps of Krieg, which was a Forge World thing up until 2020. These guys have been fighting the orcs for generations, and sometimes they even win. And the Praetorian Guard. Hailing from a very wealthy planet, these pith helmet wearing dapper dressers were somewhat short-lived, coming towards the end of Games Workshop's metal period. These soldiers' fortitude is considered near superhuman. For the Guard. For a time, all these different regiments lived harmoniously in Games Workshop's catalog, and made for the faction Astra Militarum actually being many different factions all housed under one Imperial Guard roof. This diversification helped to get the Guard into the hands of players who all wanted a little something different with their unique human army, but it would not last forever. The number of models was bursting at the seams, where other Warhammer 40k factions had their own uniqueness while taking advantage of one core model range. The Imperial Guard were unwieldy. Space Marine players could make hundreds of different chapters all using the same few model kits, but the Guard required a lot more shelf space, and I think that developed into a problem that Games Workshop couldn't fix. Games Workshop slowly started to drop the unique regiments from the range, keeping the Cadians as the poster boys of the faction, giving them a slick plastic kit, and letting the Katachan Jungle Fighters hang around as well, as they also had a plastic kit. But the other regiments would slowly disappear, occasionally popping up as made-to-order models, but with no specific time frame in mind. Players had nothing to go off of, and so these just became one-off little projects for the older fans. The only ones who still remembered that those models ever existed. The only fans, if you will. As cool as the regiments were, I do get that it was a lot, and Games Workshop hasn't made any attempts to wipe the old regiments from the lore. These OOP out-of-production ranges pop up frequently in the Black Library novels, but in terms of miniatures, today, the Astra Militarum is the Cadian show, with guest appearances by the Katachan. But just because Games Workshop can't make it fiscally responsible for themselves to keep lots of unique Guard regiments around doesn't mean no one can. There are a lot of great independent mini-makers out there who will fill the gaps with loads of amazing sci-fi soldiers that would make great stand-ins for the more esoteric regiments. Like Wargame Atlantic's Ramjar Infantry, drab soldiers that blend real-world khaki uniforms with some sci-fi armor and weapons. These models would make perfect stand-ins for some Armageddon Steel Legionnaires or maybe even some Death Corps of Krieg. Victoria miniatures, Desert Scorpions, great count-as for the Talar Desert Raiders with lots of unique poses and war gear, including heavy weapons. These are great models to represent those infantry with sand in their boots. Or Anvil Industries' Adrian helmets. And it's not just the helmets. Anvil Industry has a wide range of Build-A-Bear style components, heads, torsos, legs, weapons to fit almost any regiment from 40k or anything else you can think of. Yes, they have Cowboy Guard. Your prayers have been answered for some sci-fi soldiers with big iron laser guns on their hips. Wargamers gonna wargame, with or without Games Workshop. And if there is some little nugget of 40k's backstory that really appeals to you, there is always a way to make it happen. And most of the stuff out there looks a lot better than Games Workshop was offering 10 to 15 years ago. Just saying, Games Workshop, don't come after me. And speaking of space soldier stuff, our Patreon welcome pack comes with some cool Dawn of War inspired buildings to give your guard a place to hang out and wargame in style. The Imperial Guard is the largest range of miniatures Games Workshop has ever made. If you add up every single Imperial Guard thing, it might just overtake Space Marines. And I think that is what made them great and led to the spot they exist at now. They flew a little too close to the sun. As Blade Runner said, the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long. The Imperial Guard exploded out in every direction and then imploded on itself. And that's not to say Imperial Guard isn't a great army with a good model range, but it hasn't reached the full potential in my opinion. And I don't have the answer to this. It'd be cool to have the regiments back. Perhaps if they were toned down a little, heads and weapon swaps instead of fully unique models could allow some of that uniqueness back into the range. Or using Games Workshop games like Kill Team or Necromunda to give Games Workshop an opportunity to release some of the other Guard regiments to customers without bloating the 40k range. It's a tricky balancing act. So what's next for the good old-fashioned Guard? Well, if I had to guess, not much. They'll get a couple more models and a shiny new codex, but if I had to put money down, I would say nothing more than that. Which is a shame. Games Workshop, if you're listening, and I know you are, James. I would say Space Marines are already a sure thing. Space Marines are probably more popular than Age of Sigmar. When it's time for Warhammer 40k's 10th edition to have that big edition starter box that everyone buys, include the Imperial Guard. I know it's already going to be Space Marines, because of course it is, but if you want to have the Imperial Guard be a thing, you have to get it out there. Flood the market, flood the secondhand market. Make Astra Militarum armies easy to get. Start that snowball rolling, so that someday we can get some of those regiments back. It worked for the Necrons in the box Indomitus, it worked for Chaos Space Marines in the old box Dark Vengeance. It's a little bit risky, but I think it is the easiest way to instantly bump up the popularity of a faction. Games Workshop follows the money. Space Marines are currently top dog, and that's why we see so many unique versions of the Space Marines like Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Black Templar, Ultramarines, Salamanders, Imperial Fists, Death Watch. All that attention has led to them being popular, while the Imperial Guard get squat. Not squat like the Leagues of Votann squat meaning nothing. And hopefully one day that'll change. 40k is getting more popular by the year. If Cadians start flying off the shelves, there's no reason why Games Workshop would not try their luck with some Valhallan Ice Warriors, or a few more plastic Deathcore of Krieg. The Guard are something special in Warhammer 40k, and I hate to see them at the bottom of the Imperial pack. There was an excellent quote from the 3rd edition Imperial Guard Codex. Other armies may be more flamboyant or have better characteristics and access to more sophisticated weaponry and war gear. But somehow, the Imperial Guard will win through a combination of numbers, determination, and sheer cussedness. And the occasional tank or 3. Let me know in the comments down below your feelings on the Guard. Do you play them? Do you want to collect them? Do you agree that they're a little down in the dumps right now? Let me know, and as always, thanks for watching.